Good evening and welcome to tonight's reading by two authors who share a commitment to manifesting frankness in all its forms. Frank being not only the earthly name of beloved beings seared onto the covers of two of their best known books, but also an ethics of liberation. Frankness coming from the root word meaning free, an ethos that extends far beyond the page. They do not, as Will Alexander writes, forbid themselves their own volcanism, or let gradually themselves be silenced or confined by pre-existing forms or formations. They are, as Adrienne Rich once said of Dickinson, volcanoes in the house of poetry, with what Terence Hayes has called tenacity and intensity, with rage and grace. They do us the supreme justice of presenting the full-blownness and dimensionality of our being. I rejoice in their freedom, which is never a past tense of freedom, but always seems to be occurring in the permanent, precarious now of their work. In this quality and others, I find they resonate with the writings of the late, great Diane and with the work of our introducer tonight, the one and only Ariana Reines. Ariana had a last-minute travel change. No doubt some residual Mercury retrogradation is in the air. In lieu of her live presence tonight, she has offered this thoughtful, substantive, and downright inimitable meditation. Please welcome the pre-recorded, but no less powerful, Ariana Reines.
Hello, my name is Ariana Reines, and it's my thrill and honor to be introducing CAConrad and Diane Seuss to you tonight. Welcome to the Woodbury Poetry Room at Harvard, virtually. This is a very, very special place. And before I say a few words about Conrad and Diane's work, I want to acknowledge the poet Christina Davis, who curates this series and who masterfully runs this space. The Woodbury Poetry Room is the beating heart and soul of a place that is very hostile to beating heart and soul. And I don't want to be a dick, so I won't tell you what the place is that I'm referring to, but you all know I'm talking about a certain institution, but I'm really also talking about the world as we know it right now. Poetry is a place we go to be refreshed. The soul is reborn through it. And I think language itself wants to go into poetry to find refreshment too. And that those of us who have it flowing through us find language pushing us, driving us into that place to quench our thirst and to find resurrection. And I see tonight as a resurrectionary night. Mercury goes direct today, Monday, October 18th, 2021. And I don't know about you, but the Mercury in retrograde we've just been through are still dealing with. For me, it was definitely the heaviest and harshest Mercury in retrograde possibly of my entire life. So I'm really excited that this event can act as a portal to usher us into the new world that happens after we've been refreshed by these poems and by these poets. I'm going to confine my remarks mostly to the newest books by both, because in a way we're celebrating these books tonight. Amanda Paradise is just out from Wave, and CAConrad, I imagine, will be reading from that book, although they write so much, we could be hearing brand new things. And Diane Seuss has a new book from Graywolf called Frank, and it is a sequence of sonnets constituting a kind of a memoir, but more than a memoir. And both are really, really powerful, extraordinary, and stunning works. just a few words about some things that I see both poets have in common. Because they're very different poets, but there are worlds that their poetry returns me to, and there are places in me that their poetry reaches that a lot of poetry doesn't. Death and elegy are a major part of the work of both these poets, but their work absolutely pulses with life. And you have the sense that although the technical mastery is on display in every line, in every word, in every cut of the line, on every page for both poets, that these are people pulsing with life for whom the dry and technical, the merely excellent is not enough. And I love that about both of them. There's so much blood and guts. There's sex and tears. There's solitude, loneliness, mournfulness, fury. There's real life shit and there's social shit, family shit. The impossible filth of desire and the purity of being. And a sense that you can expand yourself to encompass all this and include all this. That's something that the work of both poets gives. So, a few words about my friend CAConrad and their new book, Amanda Paradise, as they're reading first tonight. I really believe that it is the singular charisma and also immense generosity, the magnitude of CAConrad's work that has made a lot of snobby people and dried up souls suddenly open themselves to magic. Conrad wouldn't like it, I don't think, for me to say that it's them. It's because of them that there's a certain curiosity, if not respect, now being accorded to certain modes of being and of understanding and of experience that go beyond the empirically ratified. But I really do believe that the way that they have trained their voice, the way that they have fearlessly described their methods, and the charisma with which they've delivered all of this into the halls of academe and the highest palaces of art all across the globe, people have found themselves interested in art's potential to heal, not as some thing they'd look down upon or something that femmes do, but something really serious and worthy of genuine curiosity. Conrad has a warrior spirit, and they are a warrior for life, for art, and for love. They're totally without pretension. As long as I've known them, they're always giving out broadsides, doing their poetry and their Reiki and their healing work in any place that they can. However fancy, however random, fearlessly. Which is not to say they're not sensitive enough to feel fear, they're just not interested in it. They are a warrior. And Amanda Paradise is resurrectionary in a way that all of their books are, but in a very, very particular way. There's a tenderness in these poems that's aching and searing. They're filled with love and sex and an understanding of the absolute waste of the way that we let ourselves and our souls die in this mechanistic culture. And Conrad's entire poetics is a war against the mechanistic deadening of the soul. And the renewing and continually renovating creativity that their work shows is a testament to the healing power of their methods. Resurrect Extinct Vibration was maybe the first somatic and the first poem of this book that I encountered, and I got to hear Conrad read from it. And the courage of it overwhelmed me at the time. Conrad uses their body in order to face these enormous realities that are very difficult for us to grasp in our senses. Not cutting their hair until the war ends, but it's been forever war, for as long as I've been an adult. Filling their body with the sound of birdsong, extinct birdsong. Filling their body with vile political speeches, willingly using their body as an organ, as an instrument, in order to produce the visionary poems that save our lives. Diane Seuss's new book, Frank, is an absolutely virtuosic and spellbinding memoir in verse. It's a sequence of sonnets by somebody so wild, a spirit so wild. It's just absolutely hilarious and wonderful, the way that this old form has accommodated her absolutely endless mind. And she returns me to the original sonneteers, who I think were pretty groovy too. It's interesting that such a tidy, pert, tart little form could accommodate so much. Frank is an absolutely devastating, gorgeous, luscious book. Thinking about its cousins, I thought of Frank Stanford, Wanda Coleman, and the late James Schuyler, the later Schuyler. But really, Diane Seuss is Seussian, just as Conrad is Conradian. These are two poets who are really, really without compare. I adored reading this book. I couldn't put it down. I saw myself in many lines and on many pages. And I want to say something about the way that Diane Seuss weaves a world that's lush. The characters, the family, the friends, the milkweed, the colors. Connecting the light of dawn to a dish rag and the light of evening to a menstrual rag. The ways that immensities, bodily realities, and social bullshit are all real, but all expand and contract in this magic space that she creates. She invokes Keats a lot, and I think that the spirit of Keats was very much with her as she wrote these sonnets. To me, Keats is the one who liquefied the sonnet, and Diane has pure, liquid, quicksilver mind. These are poems that bear witness to AIDS, to the mother-daughter relationship, to the mother-son relationship, to addiction, to bad love, to love gone wrong, the sickness and torment of desire. Basically all the things you want from poetry. Anyway, I better shut up and let you hear from these two, and I hope that you'll make them read long. Thank you so much. CAConrad and Diane Seuss.
Wow, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much, Christina, for having me. I'm very excited to be reading with Diane. And thank you everybody who makes the Woodbury Poetry Room work. That was an incredible introduction. And I mean, Ariana basically explained most of the ritual that I did to write this new book, so I don't really need to. I just want to add one little thing before I share the screen to read the poems, is that this new book came to me when I was working on the last book. I was at this marvelous place in New Hampshire called McDowell, and I was in the forest working on a ritual to overcome a very serious, debilitating depression after a boyfriend of mine was murdered. But it was when that worked, it was when that like grabbed a hold of me and worked out there in the forest, where this next book came in. And the idea, I can't really explain all of it. It's too much to explain. But I just wanted to say this briefly. I was focusing on the recordings of these creatures who become extinct in my lifetime, because I was thinking about ecopoetics as, well, but more than just a conversation about degraded soil, air, and water, also about vibrational absence. When a species leaves the planet, they take all of their sounds with them. And I wanted to bring that back to the air a little bit while I was doing it around the country, flooding my body, starting at my feet and working up to my head. There were actually 9 ingredients. That's just one, working with the recordings. But I would rather share some poetry right now. I'm going to share the screen. I hope you can see that. Amanda Paradise. Also wanted to thank everybody at Wave Books for taking such beautiful care of my poems. Only in stacking books can the tree feel its weight again. I am so fucking sick of nations and the men who love them. The number of suicides this afternoon hiding in bottom of a cup. I feel feral out here. Found a man who likes me like that. Found a man who lives the way I do. 7 years on the road anniversary soon. You only have to destroy yourself for love until it is normal, which makes love normal. And refuse to live a day without it. An inferno of it. At 16, sleeping with my mother's boyfriend, I was overwhelmed with it. Solids from around you until you struggle no more beneath it. Feel throat open in a word. Naming new stars, moving across the ceiling from the disco ball. Constellations with stories to soften hardened hearts. We finished the night reading poetry out loud. Last night, Erica Kaufman's mind-blowing post-classic. Poetry and love sure know how to hang a welcome sign out, measure and transmit from the pink and adorable telemetry. No more waiting between parentheses. We now excel in the ether while holding hands. This is a good moment to just briefly mention that one of the things that I confronted about myself when doing this ritual was my guilt at enjoying doing the ritual with all these recordings of extinct animals. And that guilt braided with my guilt of so many friends and lovers who died of AIDS. And they just appear over and over again in this book. Acclimating to discomfort of the system breaking beneath us. I do not take any calls except from the century we are in. When there is no Bible in my hotel room, it makes me sad to have no place to put my filthy poems for future guests. It is important to let them know. Everyone should burn with abandon as soon as the heat is available. Be a self-styled alarm clock no one can shut off. Be the storm love places in someone's home. Are you sure we can handle this? Because I am absolutely certain. Come on, Dwayne, knock us around. We are a tide that cures ills. Look at us in the mirror. As soon as the invented language enters us, something else will vibrate in our skin. Opening door of teeth of the future to the place where we let the freer feeling go. When you told me you had been looking for me, we pressed through every invisible barrier between us. I watched you gently let the gods know you were ready to win the lottery. There were people from the 19th century alive in my lifetime many years ago. I met some of them. They are all gone now as we hold on to the side of one another, howling down the velocity of seconds. I wanted to say I'm really proud, so I'm really excited about this. Angela Conant, who is this brilliant art curator in New York City, working with the Elizabeth Foundation for Art, invited me to be part of the Boy Box show at their gallery just a couple months ago. And she asked me how I wanted to participate. And I said, well, I want one of my poems to be in the show. So because of the content of the show, it's about toxic masculinity. And that's exactly what this poem is dedicated to. She brilliantly printed this poem on 6 feet of chiffon and had it dangling from the ceiling. It was just absolutely gorgeous, amazing. My love to Angela Conant. And I dedicate this poem to my favorite living visual artist, Jason Dodge, who is just extraordinary. Memories of why I stopped being a man. It's normal if your cock gets hard while you are shooting, my uncle told me on my first deer hunt. Pythagoras knew the music of Jupiter and Mercury long before Nassau. But to begin again, no hero itching at the door. That never-ending search for weakness in neighbors, siblings, co-workers, rival football teams. After seeing the open body of muscle and blood, we had horrible ideas about what to do with our lives. Imagine how they gathered around the first cannon ever fired. Sweaty, excited, rock hard. Before he died, Kalashnikov confessed to suffering unbearable nightmares. Surrender your nouns to my verbs, he said, he said, he said, he said. In a game of Russian roulette, I want a pair of glasses that can see the wind. I walk around town each night, watching the slightest breeze approach dry leaves like a premonition. After a million years of dreaming, the solution is still the same. Hold me to your bruised song until it warms me right. And I know the shape of this poem looks like Texas, I know. And that's exactly why I'm reading it, because Texas needs poetry right now. For all of my friends in Texas dealing with the fascists down there in the government. On all fours, I am a seat for the wind. Most of my family's international travel is being sent to war. If we judge love, we can kill off anything. Drag by our hair across the days until they make the way inside our dreams where we get to evict them. I want to thank the one who invented knocking on the door, but no one remembers their name to tattoo across my knuckles. I asked an archaeologist about first time she stuck a shovel in the ground. Her answer had same restorative powers as the gravediggers. When we die, we can no longer wipe the muck off. Just lie there, becoming shit of the world. Eat a chip of your own dried blood. Join me in the cannibal sunshine, fully persuaded by the world through song. Each morning, a blue jay screams at edge of the clear-cut forest. I scream with her at the bleeding stumps. Scream inside something borrowed, like ocean, like skin. I want to see before I die a mink wearing a human scarf, skin from a handsome hairy leg. Meow. I mean, I don't think makes me out, but. So I'm going to end this portion of the reading, and then I'm just going to end with some new poems. So the book ends with this long 72-part poem in the back. I'm just going to read a handful of these. And this is when I really, so this was under lockdown in the beginning. Most of the book was not written under lockdown, but this last poem in the book was. Let me enlarge that a little bit. Why not, right? Here, let's make it a little bigger. How's that? Yeah, I mean, lockdown was just like AIDS all over again to some degree. For years after friends died of AIDS, they still danced with me in my dreams. Did survivors of the bubonic plague dance with their dead? Who will dance with whom in a year? Let's keep safe dance together in person. My grandmother Pearl said, throw your wallet away the moment you lose your job. There were many excuses for losing jobs where I grew up. She was the only person in my family in the 1980s who asked about my dying lovers and friends. She said to me after a week with 3 funerals, there was a beginning to this pain. Now you know the middle, but the end too must show itself. When you survive this, love will destroy all doubt. She was right. M drew his face the day he was diagnosed HIV positive and kept drawing as his face changed. They were sublime like Munch's self-portrait with Spanish flu. He called on his deathbed at his parents' home to say his father was in the backyard burning the stack of drawings. I wanted to make him stop. Please don't, he said. It's his last chance to deny me. How can I deny him that? After inventing the chair, we built a home around it. Memory of splinters from another part of the tree. Every time we open the door, we require our imaginations to withstand what we meet. Generations later, traveling over glinting edge of the skyscraper, we finally appreciate true dearth. We had much to leave behind in order to follow the river to the sea. My grandfather said, always remember you come from people who wash after work. Migration can change a family. Some die before they end, others born along the way. I know my poems by their shapes and have felt their edges in my dreams. The side of a poem rubbed against my cheek like a bone comb or a lover's toe. Okay, so I'm going to finish with just reading a handful of new poems, but let me put this over in the chat for you. That's how you can find, so the IG, the Instagram link is where you can see most of the new poems. Okay, let me finish this now. And I'm very excited to hear Diane. And I just love everything Ariana said about Christina Davis as well. I love Christina. Very happy to be here. Let me make that a tiny bit smaller. There we go. I like that. That's better. What I want it to stand on, it's like a little creature standing up. We'll put it down at the bottom. There we go. So I'm not even going to tell you the name of this new series because I don't like it anymore. So let's forget about that. I'm just going to read the poems. Our little places within are not dungeons, remember, remember. Astronomers point satellites into space. The military points them down at us. The inverse relationship between love we offer and what we give. This on and off button is another opportunity to believe there are only 2 choices. This too must And I'm about to leave. I teach in the fall every fall. This is my 12th year teaching in Amsterdam. And people in Europe just don't understand how dualistic we are. We can't even have 3 political parties. It's Christianity rules here. It's like the devil and God rule everything. It's like, we just can't even have a third party. They won't allow us. You can't even have a third gender. Well, we will anyway. We don't really care what they want. A storm of handwriting was this poem's first shape. All that matters is which decisions today lead me closer to you. Do not fall away. 1, 2, 3. A paper boy delivering his father's obituary. A footnote to stumbling in the dark as an art form. Come sing with me into this dough. What song shall we bake into our supper? Not nostalgic for 80s music. I hate 80s music. Not nostalgic for 80s music. I'm reminded of helping friends overcome limits of hospital walls. Each new diagnosis loosened mortar between us. Danced to George Michael's Faith with absolute determination. Just hearing it exhausts me. I continue to live to make Jesus regret dying for my sins. Take that, Jesus. What was the point of today? Nothing more than microscopic creatures on my eyelids, reaching for sunlight with me. How hard is your historical memory? As in gay bashing 101. Same day you learn hieroglyph means sacred carving. Elegy is not a form. It is a state of being the poet must write from. A faggot takes a beating from another holy book. And the band said, this is my 4-leaf clover. What did they say? This is my 4-leaf clover. That's a song from the 80s, from Tears for Fears. Swallowed each other until we heard each other think. Queer pirates I have loved, loosen my wilderness. No more miscounting butterflies in our utopia. Let's make poems that can rob a bank. Why not? Just a few more. Losing something too important to lose is hard the first time. So next time, ransom April's song before it finds itself. I took my time finding the right man to build this wall against the phantasm. We're rowing to the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. We send our love. This is the reason I'm writing these new poems, the opening of this poem, to fall in love with the world again. To desire the world as it is, not as it was. Falling feather attaches to new life. For a moment, when the hammer approached, we thought, is that thing coming this way? We are the fractal, dropped to heal our own harmonics in the muffled underground hum of seeds. Study how house is attached to planet to learn how to hold on. Slight panic, the fingerprint password will not remember grooves and fingers my mother forged inside her with a frequency that holds the shape of a leaf. I was born between Woolly Bully and California Dreamin' in the middle of war on a military base. Attached to planet Earth in Topeka, Kansas. This is the last one. Thank you so much. Do not live as though you are a footnote to the mention of a wiggle, timid hand reaching into morning weather. The beach in California feels good because America is no longer in front of us. Stop thinking we get it. Stop thinking we got it wrong, lovers, friends, and people I hope to never see again. Keep converting oxygen with one breath, then the next. Thank you so much.
Well, that was just simply glorious, CA. I feel really honored to share a screen with you and air. Let's make poems that can rob a bank. I'm in. I want to thank everybody involved in making this night happen. Christina Davis, Mary Graham, Jeffrey Valade, who has family where I live, and of course, Ariana for that wonderful introduction. And of course, you, CAConrad, and everybody at the Woodbury Poetry Room. Okay. So I'm going to read all sonnets from my newest book, Frank Sonnets. Poetry, the only father, landscape, moon, food, the bowl of clam chowder in Nakata. Was I happy? Mountains of oyster shells, gleaming silver, poetry, the only gold. Or is it? My breasts, feet, my hands, index finger, fingernail, hangnail, paper cut. What is divine? I drove to the sea, wandered aimlessly. I stared at my tree. I said in my mind, there's my tree. There's my tree, I said in my mind. I remember myself before words, thrilled at my parents' touch. Open milkweed with no agenda, blew the fluff, no reaching for comparison. To be free of signification, wriggle out of the figurative, itchy sweater, body, breasts, vulva, little cave of the uterus, clit, need, touch, come. I came before I knew what coming was. Iambic pentameter. Did I feel it? Does language eclipse feeling? Does it eclipse the eclipse? Who wants to be soft? I don't. I've even seen a hermit crab outgrow its shell and drag its perilous softness into a doll's head. Crab, I empathize. As a kid, I fed my big baby dolls barefoot into a rotating fan blade. I wasn't mean, not at all, inquisitive. Doll donated her toe to science. I mixed potions, iodine, nightshade, in some incongruity, like a few drops of my dad's aftershave. He was dead by then, but there was a quarter of a bottle of aqua velva in the medicine chest, which I used sparingly. I wasn't planning to poison anyone, even my sister, who's here tonight, who showed me how to harden up by folding her arms across her chest and scowling at Dad's abdominal tumor. Our mom slammed the door and drove to Lake Michigan. I pictured her making her way into the sheltering undertow. The Reverend Larry Whiteford sang "When the Gates Swing Open" at the funeral, and the three of us sat there like Mount Rushmore. Anyway, Dad was a softie, Jesus a softie. This was from my hometown, the music I hear from it. One's got an eye thing that makes her walk on her tiptoes. One's got a brain thing that gives him the quivers. Another's got a brain thing that falls him down, a brain thing that rises him. One won't leave the house, another won't come home. One's got a goat that strips leaves off the grapevines. One butchered a hog the kids slept on like a pillow. One glories in the Lord and it gives her bad conniptions. One glories in caterwauls. One's deaf to caterwauling. One stuck on the memory of wild lupines. One thinks back on the showy flowers of the male goat's beard, the root beer scent of sassafras. One stands on a cable spool and orates fairy tales to stunted inbred lambs. One's got a brain thing, puts a wrench in her remembering. One with an eye thing puts a crick in his forgetting. One recalls when the earth stars went away, whose fungal petals shivered and opened in the rain. The White Rabbit was before the high rise, bras stuffed with socks. You can hear it in the breeze, boys wanted boobs. Cattails hammered the wind. Mr. K is too fancy. Remember Satan's Inn, about beat a bitch's ass on the pool table, glass floor lit up red back then. Mansion changed into a hospital, gazebo across from the Catholics. Remember Joe Savage and his snake act, Mrs. Funk? Remember the whorehouse by the depot back when it still had a ticket window? Nobody cared, their teeth were small and green. Where was Pecker's Pond? Where was Penis Rock? Who remembers the mustache Betty wore to the men's side of the wire factory? Shondell, who died mysterious. Remember cancer clusters on Pucker Road? Something wrong with the wells, dumped cyanide in a pit and built over it. Brown cloud. When Bill dove and broke his neck, people thought he was playing drowned. Who shimmied, soul kissed, French inhaled, jerked. River drank Wonderland and the Button Factory. Since the flooding, everything's a blur. Was all there was, and was what we were. I have slept in many places for years on mattresses that entered my life via nothing but luck. As a child on wet sheets, I could not contain myself. As a teen on the bed where my father ate his last pomegranate, among crickets and chicken bones in ditches, in the bare grass on the lavish grounds of a crumbling castle, in a flapping German circus tent, in a lean-to, my head on the belly of a sick calf, in a terrible darkness where a shrew tried to stay afloat in a bucket of well water, in a blue belfry, on a pink couch being eaten from the inside by field mice, on bare floorboards by TV light with Mickle on Locust Place, on an amber throne of cockroach casings, on a carpet of needles from a cemetery pine, in a clubhouse circled by crabapple trees with high school boys who are now members of a megachurch, in a hotel bathtub in St. Augustine after a sip from the fountain of youth, cold on a cliff's edge, passed out cold on train tracks, in a hospital bed, holding my lamb like an army of lilacs. I fell on an incline, talus, tibia, fibula, calcaneal tendon mangled, red circuits ruptured, body facing east toward a little town named Climax, and then New York, where I once danced in a circle of girls at Kev's sister's wedding, broom, shattered glass, Kev in his parents' bathroom pilfering benzos from the medicine chest. And now his grave, lonely in sunlight in Sag Harbor. My leg twisted west toward the lake sunset, San Francisco, where Mikkel, covered in chaos lesions with his last $50, took me in a cab to see the Conservatory of Flowers. Actually, only the zinnias. Just look, he said, a yellow that made my eyes ache, but nothing thus far compares to bone pain except childbirth. Put a bullet, I begged my ex-husband in the 48th hour of labor, right here, pointing to my temple. Leg inert in a black cast for months, dead grandma's wheelchair, son by then a junkie, blank and mean. I crawled to the cold road, pleading for help. Humbled yet, queen? There is a force that breaks the body, inevitable. The byproduct is pain. Unexceptional as a rain gauge, which has become arcane. Rhyme likewise, unless it's assonant or internal injury. Gloom, joy, which is also a dish soap, but not the one that rids seabirds of oil from wrecked tankers. That's dawn, which should change its name to dusk. Irony being the flip side of sentimentality here in the Iron Age. Ironing out the kinks and despair, turning it to hairdo from hair. To do, vexing infinitive. Much better to be pain's host, body of Christ as opposed to the Holy Ghost. When I've been suffering at times, I could step away from it by embracing it. A blues thing, a John Donne thing. Divest by wrestling, then sing. I mentioned sleeping with Mikkel by TV light way back when in an alleyway, and going out to see him in San Francisco before he died in the mid-'80s of AIDS. And this is about him. I want to zero in on what he looked like for posterity, if nothing else. There was more than a little bit of Nicholson in Chinatown. The hairline, but not the toughness, not the hetero gaze through half-closed eyes or the nasty gash on the nose that Nicholson wore through most of the movie. Though toward the end, Mikkel did have lesions on his nose and ear and neck and temple. Definitely some Neil Young, the mouth, the lowering of the chin and looking out from behind the hair that fell over his eyes when he was very young, getting called a faggot by the football boys, art class, we drew together. What I took for romantic interest was interest. Actual interest. And later, when he was full on dying, he made complicated arrangements for me to inherit his car to replace the piece of shit Oldsmobile I was driving. In the end, his friends sold his car in San Francisco and sent me a check to put toward a used Chevy Nova, maroon, scarred, but it ran okay. Now and then he'd say, I'm Suck Owens, and these here boys are my fuckaroos, and sing, I've got a tiger by the tail. But more often in his upstairs room on Locust Court, he'd play the piece of shit guitar, always such a light touch, sing helpless, 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 that song. Mattress on the floor, I didn't mind. Alarm clock on the windowsill, the wind-up kind. This is him too. He said it bummed him out his dick didn't work anymore, but it was never about dick for us, was it? Though for a while it was all about dick for him. San Francisco dick, far, far away from his brutal fireman father and me. He could finally do what he wanted with his dick and other people's dicks, and dress as I Love Lucy and write a serial featuring Dyke Van Dyke, and refer to himself when not wearing dress and wig as an existential cowboy. The charismatic impresario of all we did, Alan said of him. But that wasn't how it was for us. We did not waste our charisma on each other, did not dress for the other. Or did I dress for him a little bit? Did I perform for him? I knew no other way. The last time I saw him, before he lost his mind and filled with ocean, died, he said, "Di, your body changed. I'd just given birth to a 10-pound baby. Jesus Christ, what do you want from me? What did you ever want from me?" You know what living means? Tits out, tits in the rain, tits in the cereal bowl, tits ablaze. What beauty there is now on the wane. I've seen beauty tinkle in the spring, its little breeze-born bells. Summer's copper gong, heat frizzing the wisteria until all that's left is rat hair. Winter, I think they're ice flutes. I think blue lips of killed kids blow cold notes from ice flutes. You know what living's for? Tits, sacrosanct, declined, tits blued by cold, insomnia, midnight, indigoed like collapsed veins, steel blue stained pillowcase of the crone whose nightie won't be pulled up anymore. I saw my tits when I was young reflected back to me in a blue mirror on which were laid out lines of coke. Even then they were old, savant tits. They knew things. Purpled, milked out, mounded low and moving slow in the old way. How about one more? And I'll dedicate this to everybody in the poetry room who helped and to CA. My private parts are many. My teeth are private, my tongue, the buoy of my brain bobbing in its cloistered sea. My eyes, vitreous detachment, the lightning that crackled when the membrane broke inside my eye. I was at Kmart roving among female sanitary products, each in its private firing chamber. And a flock of crows rose in my vision, and never since has found a branch to land on. The flock's voice private, my own voice box's wet, surreptitious lid opens to the jewelry box ballerina who keeps my tune whirling. And what is beneath her gauze skirt is private, in the hole in the crotch of my pants, and my memory of the blood stain on the crotch of the yoga teacher's sleek leggings, private. My viscera, as if some scalpel could penetrate me, some x-ray could make my fractures glow. My first love was not a football player who wiped my tears with his dirty sock, who grew into a fireman and fell through the roof. My first love was a phallus of cheap perfume, a small black bottle from the mall, a clandestine phallus called femme fatale. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please feel free to unmute your mics and give your thanks to our two guests tonight. Unmute thyselves and thank them.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so cute.
Thank
you.
Fantastic.
Phenomenal.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Fabulous. Thank you, CA. Thank you, Diane.
Thanks.
That was
Wow.
amazing.
Oh, brilliant.
We are going to turn pretty soon to the outro tune that our DJ Diane chose tonight. We would ordinarily choose just George Michael songs, but since
That would have been a good
Tears for
choice.
Fears all the way. But Diane, do you want to speak for a moment about why you chose a particular song?
Oh,
If they don't know yet what you chose.
yeah. So this song sort of carries the perfume of the time. I didn't read about it tonight, but when I lived in New York on the Lower East Side of Manhattan when I was young and in a lot of trouble, and the Velvet Underground were around, and I would see members, especially Lou Reed at CBGB. But it also carried a kind of sadness. The singer Nico and her story, which look up if you don't know it, is quite interesting. So it holds the memory of that place, and then also this idea of the femme fatale, which I think comes up in my work and in CA's work. So that's why.
I think we're gonna move into the music, and then you stick around and just groove to it and sign off.